Hi, I'm Lauren,
And I'm Matt.
and this is Publish and Prosper.
Where publishing, e-commerce, and marketing collide. Hello, and welcome to episode 79 of Publish and Prosper. Before I forget, what do your bracelets say?
I'm so glad you asked because they're all new. One of them says read in peace. One of them says have a magical day. And one of them says ruin everything.
Have a magical day by reading in peace, but make sure you ruin everything?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
If it helps, you're not going to like it because it's the Taylor Swift reference, but the reference is, the full lyric is, she had a marvelous time ruining everything.
Okay.
So that wouldn't fit on a bracelet.
Yeah. Well, that'd become a necklace.
That would become a necklace.
Not into that?
Maybe I'll start moving on to those.
Yeah, necklaces.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, who knows?
You could start a new Taylor trend. Instead of bracelets, it's necklaces, and you get a full lyric on there.
That could work.
Maybe.
I could work with that.
I want 10% of everything you sell.
Which is going to be $0 because I don't sell them.
That's what I'm used to, so it's okay.
Fair enough.
All right. Episode 79, right?
Yep.
And today we are doing something different. And the hopes is that we do more of these.
Yeah.
So, we'll probably update and make changes. But ultimately, we wanted to do a series of creator spotlights, kind of like case studies. So not necessarily an interview per se, but, more like a verbal, visual case study on a particular creator, their publishing journey for a particular book, and some of the ins and outs, and hopefully it provides value to the few people who are listening. So today's creator spotlight is on one of our favorite people. His name is Justin Moore, and we did reference Justin back in episode 76 when we were talking about partnerships. He is a sponsorship coach.
Yes.
So different than partnerships for the most part, but he's probably one of the best out there at it. And he recently published his book at the beginning of this year, and it's done extremely well. So we wanted to use him as our first creator spotlight because Justin really has, I think, embodied all of the things that we've talked about in the last 78 episodes, and just done it really, really well. Lauren has his book nicely propped up here like this is a home shopping channel or something, but for those of you that are not watching, you're only listening, there is a copy of his book on a bookstand on the table between Lauren and I.
His book, which is called Sponsor Magnet, for those of you not watching, or for those of you that do not have eagle eyes on your YouTube screen right now, How to Attract, Price, and Execute Your Dream Brand Partnerships. And we've actually referenced Justin probably 4 or 5 times, if not more than that, in various episodes. We've talked about him for the work that he's done with his pre-launch marketing and his post-launch marketing. We've talked about him in reference to his not necessarily writing in public, because I don't think he was actually writing this in public, but he's done a lot of public-facing sharing the details of his book sales and sharing like different parts of his publishing journey.
He's been very public about the book and very
Yes.
public about the fact that he was writing a book. He just didn't write the book in public. But yeah, I
Right.
think what you're saying is the coolest part is because all the other aspects of the book, whether it's the marketing, the sales, the business behind it, he's been very public about.
Yes. So you've heard his name before if you've listened to more than like 5 of our episodes, because we've definitely shouted him out before. And so we thought maybe we would kind of tie it all together and do a deep dive into exactly how he's gone about this and like how he's found some really cool success.
Yeah,
with the
he
publishing.
even turned this book into an actual in-person event called Sponsor Games.
Yeah, which you went to.
I did go to that. It was really cool. I wasn't sure what to expect, by the way, but it was really cool and unlike any other event I'd been to. So, and we'll probably touch on that, but he's just done so much with this book. It's pretty impressive. So why don't we jump in? And I know that you actually interviewed him, so we'll let you kind of lay down the backstory of who Justin is and kind of how we got to this point.
Yeah. So just for context and clarity, this is not like a live interview episode. He's not going to be joining us on air as we're recording this episode, but I did send him a list of interview questions, and he sent me back a very thorough and well done video answering all of my questions. It was so helpful.
Which is also typical Justin.
It was exactly what I could have wanted or needed.
If you ask him for X, he'll give you X, Y, and Z.
It was great.
Yeah, so Justin's done many a number of things. We first met Justin while he was in full swing with his current creator business called Creator Wizard. Mm-hmm. He's a full-time content entrepreneur. He's a sponsorship coach first and foremost. Most of his content is obviously around helping other creators land, beneficial sponsorships for their content, their channels, whatever it is they're doing. But he's been around for quite some time. I think his journey started on YouTube. Mm-hmm. He's been a full-time creator since 2014-ish. So, a little over 11 years doing this full-time, no other job. But yeah, I think he realized that his strength was sponsorships, and that's where he's kind of doubled down. So Creator Wizard is his business, his brand. You can find that anywhere, YouTube, Instagram, you name it.
Including in the show notes for this episode.
Yeah.
I will definitely link to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he really has like kind of cast a wide net with that business. And that was kind of the journey that he talked through what led him to publishing a book.
So when I first started educating creators around sponsorship strategy, I started making YouTube videos because I consider myself a YouTuber first and foremost. I learn from watching YouTube videos just personally. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make videos. And so but very quickly, people said, "Oh, I love the things, the frameworks that you're talking about. I would love to read more about this." And so I said, "Okay, let me take the transcripts from the YouTube video and make a blog, make a website." And so that was the first iteration that I did. And then people said, "I love these frameworks and reading about this, but I'm not going to visit your site all the time. Can you send me these to my inbox?" And I said, "Okay, let me make a newsletter, right?" And then people said, "Oh, I love getting your newsletter, but I actually want to learn and read more about this on a commute because I'm not a full-time creator yet." And so I said, okay, let me make a podcast, right? And then, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I would love, I don't have time to watch, listen to a whole episode of a podcast or whatever. What about bite-sized stuff? Okay, let me do short form content, right?" And so I just kept doing this, looking to different and new content formats to educate people. Really, it was all about kind of the North Star of impact and reaching people with the things that I believe. And so that was really one of the big reasons that I decided to write the book. I was like, okay, what is one big way in which people learn things? And it's reading a book, right? By the way, there's another way in which people learn, which is in-person experiences. And so that's why I also launched my Sponsor Games event. And so this is how I've always thought. I'm almost kind of building the Creator Wizard cinematic universe. And the book is one part of that.
Well, the first time I ever saw Justin, actually, I was just thinking about this while you were talking, was at a live event. And I kind of knew who he was, but didn't quite. And he was on stage. I think it was the first time he was ever given a keynote versus just doing a breakout session or something at an event.
Was it when we were in Boise? Was that your first time?
Maybe.
Because that was the first time I saw him.
It may have been there. I can't recall exactly. But nonetheless, I just remember seeing him on stage and hearing him on stage and thinking, this dude has way too much energy. I'm either going to love this guy or hate this guy.
It's also how I feel about people with too much energy.
Man, he's got a lot of energy. He seems to come by it naturally, though. And the more I've gotten to know him, the more I've realized that I really do like him. I think he really tries to come from a place of being helpful and adding value. And he went through all of that on his own, learning all of these things about landing sponsorships and other stuff. And the idea that he's able to pass that on now in the ways that he does it, I think is really cool. Unlike a lot of the other coaches that you would see out there around the topics of sponsorship or partnership, I think he just has a way of helping you relate to him and really understand the concepts and the approaches.
I think that is something that is truly a defining quality between a good content entrepreneur and a great content entrepreneur, is somebody that you can feel that like actual genuine enthusiasm and passion for what it is they do. And, you know, if you're learning from somebody who is in it for the money or the success or the, you know, I know this thing and I know it really, really well, so I'm going to tell you guys all about it, but they don't have that spark behind it, you know, there's nothing fun about that. There's nothing memorable about that. But when you talk to somebody who is just so genuinely like, I feel passionately about this subject that I have made my entire life's work, and I genuinely, enthusiastically want to help other people understand it and succeed in it as well.
Yeah.
Like that's the mark of a really, really fantastic content creator and content entrepreneur. And I absolutely think Justin has that.
Yeah, it really came out too in sponsor games. I mean, you know, he's literally helping and coaching people there on the spot in the moment. And nothing scripted. Like you can just tell, like it does come from a place of not only extreme subject matter expertise through experience, but passion. You know what I mean? And so again, I wasn't sure what to expect at that event, and I wasn't sure what to expect from Justin at that event, but it really was really cool. And you could see that for a lot of the people that were there, it was transformational. So, yeah. All right, let's jump into his book and his journey with this book and all of the cool stuff about why he did it and what the outcomes have been so far.
Yeah. So just to talk a little bit more about the book itself, it is basically his, he describes it as the definitive guide for anyone looking to transform their influence into a lucrative income stream through brand partnerships. And basically is an opportunity to tell people, like, this is how to acquire sponsorships, not just sitting around waiting for brands to reach out to you,
right?
But rather, you know, proactively setting yourself up, pitching yourself, reaching out to brands and securing actual like deals that are worth securing.
Yeah, I think, you know, for a lot of creators, because let's face it, there's a lot of them right now. The creator economy is just saturated. There are some that I think assume that brands will come to them if they grow their channels large enough. And sometimes it happens. But ultimately, the size of your channel doesn't really always matter. And Justin is helping people understand that and teaching them, you know, the hardest part is that actual pitch, that cold outreach, that, hey, Home Depot, I'm so-and-so, and I have this channel that talks about, you know, home projects and this, that, and the, like that cold pitch, that outreach is the hardest thing to do. And if you get it wrong the first time, you most likely don't get a second chance. So, you know, just that alone, in the way that he's able to help people do that is amazing. I think, you know, bringing that to a book could have been a pretty daunting task, but I feel like he executed really well.
Yes, I think so too. And he was one of the things that I asked him about, that he was explaining that, you know, I think this is a concern that a lot of creators have when it comes to like, am I really going to publish a book that has a lot of my educational content in it? Mm-hmm. He talked about like basically that, yes, it does kind of cannibalize a lot of his course material that he had in the online courses that he was selling.
It's a strong word, but
that was the exact word that he used. But I think it kind of made sense for how he was saying it. But that was almost intentional, or it was a strategic decision on his part, because he was interested in pivoting more towards one-on-one coaching and direct coaching with people.
Yeah. And
this was a way to kind of give people new access into Creator Wizard and the opportunity to say like, okay, instead of doing this like higher price point course and getting all this information here, let me learn from this book. Let me be sold on the idea of why this is worth it. He also mentioned something about that the book is a great way to reach people who are sponsorship skeptics. Which I think makes sense.
That's a lot of people. That's a big population.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, people that you have to convince that this is worth it might not be willing to watch hours and hours of YouTube videos.
Or sign up for, a master class or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But a book that they're being, pitched maybe for a little bit of money, maybe even given for free as like a no, really. Like I'm so confident that this book is going to change your mind. I'm going to give it to you for free. That can be a really powerful lead gen tool. Yeah.
So Justin did his book through a hybrid publishing model. So, which is a mix of self-publishing and then publishing services. He used Tilt Publishing, which means basically Justin created his manuscript, paid his package price, and turned the manuscript over to Tilt Publishing. And the people at Tilt Publishing took care of the editing, or some of the editing. I think Justin had some of the editing done, and then layout and cover design. Honestly, that's probably one of my favorite covers of any book.
I would really like the cover, and I also really like the fact that that he went with the cream paper that matches the cover. It kind of like it goes
that color combination of inside to out and cream, red, and black on the. I just think goes really well.
It's a really clean, really smooth. I actually thought about wearing a red shirt today just to match the color.
Scary.
Well, unfortunately, then I realized I only own one red shirt, so that shot that idea down.
So using hybrid publishing, he was able to turn over some of that and really make sure that the book that he brought to market was the best representation of him and his content. I know that was important to him. So shout out to Tilt Publishing for creating a beautiful book from Justin's manuscript, which I do think helped a lot in his marketing efforts. And I do know that, during the process, he would take some of the cover mock-ups that he was given and he would post those on LinkedIn and ask for people's opinions or do polls. So he was turning a lot of that pre-production work into social media content. And we've talked about that, right? We've talked about, when you're in that process of deciding between 3 different covers, taking it public and using that as social content to drive engagement. And those posts that he made on LinkedIn and other places with cover choices, I mean, he got tons of engagement on those posts. People love, like, you could tell there was people that had never commented on his posts before that would crawl out of the woodwork and make a comment about which cover they liked the best or whatever that might be. So, working through a hybrid publisher, I think worked really well for him. And being able to take some of that process as they went through pre-production and use that as social content, I think really helped him generate a lot of pre-launch buzz. So
which I paid off in spades, honestly. But he's done a lot of really cool work, and we should probably just jump into that. Did you hear that?
I did.
Me? Okay. We should talk a little bit about that, because while his pre-launch efforts were very cool, and I do want to talk about those, we've talked enough about like his marketing in public that I want to talk about his book sale goal.
Okay.
So he did this really cool, very, very public, I am setting a goal of selling X number of copies in X number of days.
It's been awesome. I've had a lot of people say, like, I bought the book because I wanted to see the ticker go up, right? So the goal that I had set, if you go to sponsormagnet.com/challenge, sponsormagnet.com/challenge, here is I haven't updated this since it's past April. So I had set this date. It was basically 3 months post launch because it launched on January 21st. In 90 days, I said, okay, if we hit this number of books, you're gonna unlock all of these things. And so we ended up unlocking the first thing. So I'm at almost 3,500 books now, but like we didn't hit that by April 21st. But like I don't care. Like I was out here trying things. Like I didn't know if it was gonna work or not, right? But it was fun and novel to like have these things that I was like talking about and reasons to like email my list and be like, guys, we're almost at this, threshold, this type of thing. So I thought it was great. And I'm continuing to kind of be, my new goal is 100,000 copies in people's hands in the next 5 years. So that's like a big, much larger and more ambitious target. But yeah, it's I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned.
100,000 copies in hands in 5 years.
I think if anybody can do it, it's Justin in this book.
Honestly, I think so too. I almost bought myself a copy after spending 5 minutes on his LinkedIn, and I don't even have a brand that I need sponsorships for.
Well, you never know.
Yet. I don't have a brand yet that I need sponsorships for.
But the reality of it is, Justin's also very well positioned because there are not a lot of books or content out there around securing sponsorships that are as helpful or I think as valuable as Justin's. And even, in general, it's not a heavily saturated topic market.
Right.
So he did paperback. Did he do hardcover?
I actually don't know.
I don't think he did.
I don't think he did.
He did ebook though. And then he just within the last few days, well, when this episode goes to air, it'll probably be about a month at that point. But then he did audiobook and he narrated the audiobook himself.
Yes, which I want to talk about that because that's really cool.
Yeah, so on the topic of how he released his book and some of the other things, just note he did a staggered format release. So he launched the paperback
and the ebook.
And he sold direct for I think the first 90 days or something like that, which was an important part of his strategy. And then he went to Amazon with it and started branching out and going wide. And then again, just recently finished up the ebook. He was narrating himself. So he does have all formats in the market now too.
Yes. Which was a very cool approach, I think. And I want to talk about both parts of that, about the staggered format and then also the going wide sales and distribution. Because I think those are both things that are really cool and something that we've talked a lot about, but we've talked about it kind of abstractly as this is what you should do. And this is an example of somebody who did it and made it work really well for him. So first with the staggered releases of formats, he did the paperback and ebook, I believe at the same time. I believe those two came out at the same time and, supported them with a lot of pre-launch marketing that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. And then the updated or the regularly recurring, this is my sales goal for this, help me reach this goal.
Yeah.
Did a lot of talking about that in public. And that was really cool. But then also staggered the audiobook release by, I guess, probably about 6 months if this came out in January.
Yeah.
We're recording this episode in the middle of June. At the time that we're recording it, I think he said it was available on most but not all platforms on audiobook. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll probably be available on all. There's just, approval processes and stuff like that for some of the platforms. But one of the things that happened that he said was not actually an intentional strategy, but was an incredibly cool accident of opportunity was because he staggered the release of the audiobook and because he decided that he was doing the audiobook narration himself, which is also something that's awesome. And when you have a background as a YouTuber and a podcaster, it's probably easy enough for you to make that jump into audiobook narration.
Probably easier than the average person, absolutely.
Yes.
But I think from the people I've talked to who have done it, it's still a pretty hard thing to do.
Oh, I'm sure. I can't imagine actually just from editing the episodes that we do, how much work has to go into doing those and getting it right, for sure. But one of the things that I thought was so cool as a result of that was that he actually decided to add additional content to the audiobook that he was able to do because it was 6 months later, or I'm sure he went into production less than that. So, several months after the release. And the additional content that he added to the audiobook was anybody that he has, I think at this point, he said hundreds of testimonials from people that have bought the book and have actual, tangible proof of, I bought this book and then landed this 5-figure, 6-figure sponsorship deal. I am directly attributing my success landing this deal to your book. And he has a bunch of people now that he has testimonials from that.
Can you imagine buying a $20-something book and then within weeks landing like let's just say a $15,000 sponsorship for your, YouTube channel.
I would argue that's the best return on investment you are ever going to get.
Come on.
Like,
that's insane. Like,
absolutely. But he has genuinely, like, I'm not talking about like one or two testimonials. And you can see them if you go on his LinkedIn. Every post that he has posted about this book has at least one comment from somebody on it saying, like, this book was a game changer for me, whatever.
He added those into his audiobook?
So the audiobook, the end of every chapter of the audiobook is he's added an interview with one person that provided a testimonial for him. And he interviewed them about how the specific steps talked about in that chapter,
so relevant to that chapter,
helped them secure the deal that they secured as a result of reading the book.
And he's a clever little guy, isn't
he really is. But he said that, and I was like, wow, that is, I mean, what an incredible opportunity. But also, if you needed more convincing that this was really worth your time and investment, you're listening to people in real time tell you this book, not Justin's coaching, not Justin's courses, not working with him in the past. This book that you are listening to right now worked for me, and this is how.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That's really smart.
That's the best proof of concept I've ever heard.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was really cool. So if you are an audiobook person, you can go listen to the audiobook. I'm assuming by the time this episode is out, it'll be available everywhere.
So he launched in January.
Yep.
First 90 days, he sold direct, captured all that customer data. He did pre-orders, by the way.
Yes.
And he launched in January, I think, with a couple hundred pre-orders, I believe, maybe more than that. I think he hit his 1,000 copy mark in that first 90 days.
Yes, he did.
Then he started going wide, so he updated to Amazon distribution.
Yes, I did want to talk about that. That was next.
Started working on the audiobook format. We're just trying to go through, his process, his journey, so that people get a good understanding of what he's doing. His pre-marketing efforts were great. We talked about that, so that by the time he did launch in January, people were very well aware that this book was coming out. He did a good job of getting a bunch of interviews and things lined up prior to the launch. And then at launch, it was pretty much a full court press. He put together a pretty solid street team of people that helped him get the word out about the book at launch time. And then post-launch, which is where most people lose steam, and they lose it generally, on average, you see about a 3-month arc where a book launches, and for a solid, 2.5 to 3 months, they just got their foot on the gas. They're talking about it. They're being interviewed. They're pushing it on posts, everywhere they can. And then after about that 3-month mark, people just start to kind of take a dive, right? Like, for whatever reason, whether it's they're just not getting any more responses, the engagement plateaus, whatever that might be, but not Justin. It's almost like he said, nope, watch this. He did the opposite, and his arc is still going up.
Yes.
And I think that's the coolest thing is, post-launch, it's almost like he's just getting started. Most people, they're just before pre-launch and launch is that's when they're up, they're hitting that arc and that peak. But I feel like Justin seems to be just getting started, and he's going into month 7 after launch, and I think the way that he's rolled this out, this book, and all of the things he's doing, from one step to the next, have just been extremely well thought out. His next book should be about how to launch a book, to be honest.
Honestly, it should be. I would read it for sure, because he really is he is doing a masterclass live in public on how to successfully launch a book. And it's really cool to watch. I want to touch on one of the things that you said in there with his pre-launch efforts, because this was something that we talked about where he said, and if this is something that I think kind of goes hand in hand with his specific content. Obviously, he's writing a book about how to pitch yourself for sponsorship deals, you have to kind of be comfortable with the idea of cold calling and reaching out to people and pitching yourself for things, if that's something that you're interested in doing as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said that one of the things that he did for his pre-launch efforts that really, helped him a lot with his pre-launch was he made a list of 100 people that he believed that he could reach out to and ask for a favor and cash in a favor and say, can I come be a guest on your podcast? Can you give me a guest spot on your blog? Can I give you some newsletter content or whatever?
I mean, that alone is a testament to just, if I had to make a list of 100 people I could go to for a favor of any size, I don't know if I could come up with 100 people.
I don't know if I could come up with a list of 100 people that I know. And I work at a company with 70-something people.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
100 people that I could text right now, just say hi, not even ask for a favor. I actually don't know that I could come up with a list.
So for the rest of us, maybe the list is 25.
Sure. But I mean, you gotta shoot a cast a wide net.
Yeah,
I guess.
of course.
And he did secure, I think he said somewhere 60 or 70 different collaboration partnerships, whatever. But one of the things that I thought was really cool about how he did that, and I thought was really great advice, was he created shareable promo content.
Let me show you the page. Okay, so this page is sponsormagnet.com/partner-assets, and you guys can check this out if you want. But we made a dedicated landing page. We had swipe copy for email and social with a bunch of pre-written newsletters, social posts, social media assets like Canva templates that they could use, blank stuff, all the book assets, mock-ups and so on, logos, frequently asked questions, and so we really did our best to try to make it as easy as possible to share the book. And so ultimately I went on something like 60 or 70 podcast interviews over the several months leading up to the launch. And so it was absolutely freaking exhausting, but it worked. It helped a lot.
That was all part of his pre-launch marketing efforts, which I thought was very proactive and a great example of really going out there and making the most of your network and making the most of partnerships that you've built up over time and over years. And like we said earlier, I mean, he's been in the game for 16 years. Is that how math works? 2009.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, these are some of those small things I think that people listening can benefit from. This idea of creating a partner's landing page for his book.
Yeah.
We've never talked about that.
No, but that's a great idea.
We've touched on creating assets for your PR efforts, right, that you could potentially share around or whatever. But again, he just takes it to another level. And I think there's some value there for people listening where, go and look at what he's done or just take that idea from something else. But creating a partner's assets page where they can download, whatever it need to be, it does make that favor much smaller when you ask it,
Yes.
Hey, I would love for you to potentially give me a review or just a shout out about my book or whatever. And to make it easy for you, just click on this link. There's stuff there you can use for whatever channel is your favorite, whether it's Instagram or X or Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever that might be. It's all there. Removing that friction, I think, is just really, really smart, and the partner page aside, when you look at his website that he built for his book, it matches, it's on brand, everything for his other business, Creator Wizard, but it is just so well done. He used the API, so he didn't use a Shopify plugin or anything. He actually used our print API, so it's coded directly into his site, and that allows him a lot of flexibility and freedoms too. But even something as simple as when you're going to add the book to your cart, there's several different choices there. And we have touched on this a little bit, but he, once again, and I would encourage everybody to look at this. I don't care if you're doing fiction or nonfiction. This one thing alone, I think, will help increase your book sales. So when you go to add a copy of his book to the cart, there's 6 options or choices, right? You can add a single copy of the book to your cart. And very cleverly, it says, something along the lines of like, oh, living dangerously, huh? No backup copy. Yeah, it says living dangerously, no backup copy. It's one copy. To me, even just finding comedy, but then the next one is 2 paperback copies. And little funny thing just underneath that just says, just in case you read in the shower, right? Like, and it goes on. You can order a 3-pack of the book, a 10-pack, right? Which has something funny there. It says plot twist. You're the bookstore now. And other things. So again, adding these options, because everybody says, yeah, add to cart, and it's that one copy. And sure, most carts, you can go and update the 1 from a 3, but nobody does. But if you made it, again, it's about removing friction. If you made it very easy by just having that choice there of 3 paperback copies. Oh, actually, yeah, I may want to give one to Lauren, and I may want to have an extra one on hand or whatever. It's that simple. And I know people are like, why would somebody... I'm telling you, if you put it in front of them, if it's an option, if it makes it super easy, people will click it.
Yes.
The 10 paperbacks or the 100 paperbacks, you never know if somebody from an organization wants to provide copies to, a bunch of their employees whose sole job is to go out and secure partnerships and sponsorships for their brand or their business or whatever it is they do. I mean, so having those options there, like something as simple as that, just really smart. And the way that it's done, injecting humor into it, I think is just, an excellent example of how this should be executed.
I think so too. And I would highly encourage anybody that is interested in any kind of book sales for whatever reason, whether you are a fiction author, whether you're somebody who's using a book as a lead gen tool, whether you're trying to create a new revenue stream, whatever it is, I highly recommend checking out his website.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a really great example of a website that is doing all of the things correctly.
Yeah, I agree. I would rip this thing off left and right. I would
100%.
copy every bit of this thing if I was launching a book right now.
100%. And I do want to, that does bring me back to not only the staggered format release, but the staggered distribution release.
Yeah.
Because he does, so like Matt said earlier, Justin did do the first 90 days of book sales were exclusively direct from his website through the API. And he was, very upfront about the exact reason that we always say that you should want to be selling direct is because he wanted to be able to own those relationships. He wanted to be able to have people in his ecosystem that he gets their email address, he can remarket to them, he can establish that direct connection with them. He also offers bonus supplemental content for anyone that buys the book. So that is a great way to get people to give him their information, which he does actually offer even if you don't buy it directly from him. So that is a great way to get people, if they came from a third-party retailer, to still wind up on his mailing list. But he did ultimately go wide with his distribution after that initial launch push. And he has the books available on Amazon and other retailers. He very much said, he wanted people to go, he wanted to go as wide as possible. He wanted people to be able to find his book anywhere, but he still pushes all of his promotion to his website.
Yeah.
And because there's a difference, and I think that's a really important distinction that we should all understand, is that there's a difference between going wide with your book sales and having your book available everywhere and going wide with your promotional efforts. And I would not encourage anybody to go wide with your promotional efforts. Go wide with your book sales, have your book available on as many retail distribution platforms as possible, but continue to drive all of your marketing efforts. Anything that you're doing to promote your book should go to your website. You should not be linking to Amazon. You should not be linking to any competitors. You should be linking to your website that has your book on it, because you want people to go to your space.
Yeah.
No one else's.
Definitely. I mean, everything Justin does going forward, he's now building that database of people who bought his book, which I know was a big goal of his.
Yes.
In selling direct, was to capture that data.
And also to have those opportunities to continue to remarket to these people, which was another, great side effect of the staggered release and the staggered distribution in both cases, because obviously while you're hoping that everybody that buys the book from you is going to wind up on your mailing list, he already has a large existing newsletter following and mailing list. So there are certainly plenty of people on that might not have bought the book yet. So the opportunities of, hey, just letting everybody know the book is now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, bookshop.org, wherever you like to buy your books. If you haven't already bought it from me, I'd still prefer you buy it from me, but you can buy it there now if you want to. And then 3 months later, hey, everybody, just letting you know the audiobook is out now, and it's got a bunch of extra bonus content in it. It's narrated by me, but there's also a bunch of guest appearances from creators just like you or influencers just like you. Go check it out. You can find it here on Libro FM or wherever. And then a month from now, now it's on Audible too. So here, it's an opportunity and a reason to reach out to people again and remind them that the book exists, without just sending another email saying, knock, knock, hey, buy that book yet? So
He's really good at promoting his book in such a way where, I don't think it's obnoxious and or, over the top to a degree. He would probably describe it that way himself.
He did.
Others might say, yeah. But I just love the way that he does it. Again, you can just tell that it's genuine. And I think the real point here, and again, for people to take some value away from this, is that he's just consistent with it. We talked about that 3-month arc that seems to be the pattern for most people post-launch. But Justin just doesn't stop talking about his book. And he does it in ways that I think are helpful. He shows up every day, and he talks about it in one way or another, whether it's in his email signature or anything else. And I think, I see the quote that you have in here.
Just constantly talk about it until you basically annoy everyone. I think I've very much I'm right on the line of being shamelessly shilling myself, and to the point of where it's obnoxious. I think I do it in a way that's not obnoxious though. It's I'm just so earnest, I think, in my desire to help people that it doesn't come across as a buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing. It's it all comes from I want to help you. I really believe that this can have a huge impact for your business and your life. And so please just read the dang book, right? I'll give it to you if you don't want to buy it. This type of energy.
That was great.
I mean, again, it's nice to see these things materialize because, people hear us talk about it and they go, yeah, okay. But, and again, it's kind of the impetus behind us doing these creator spotlights is when you can see, or we can show you firsthand people that are putting a lot of this stuff in practice and combining a lot of the things, and with Justin, he's combined everything and then added to that in true Justin fashion. He's elevated some of those things, but it does work. It's not just us sitting around saying, yeah, you should do this or you should do that. When you do these things in conjunction with each other, it works,
Yeah, I think this is very much one part proof of concept of things that we've talked about throughout this podcast that we're saying, no, look, actually somebody really did it and did it really well. But also the other part, just great ideation of look at what happens when you go out there and you try new things.
Yeah, but you know what? To a degree too, and again, that just I think further humanizes him and his efforts. Right now, we are surrounded by AI and all kinds of other, automated types of content creation and delivery, and there are many times where we're not sure what's real or sincere, or you've got creators coming at you left and right talking about 6-figure, 7-figure incomes, all these things. And it just starts to feel like you're living in an infomercial these days when you're online. And it's like creator success overload at times. You just don't know what to believe. But because he's been so public about everything, the losses and the wins, like you said, I think that just further humanizes Justin. And I keep, going back to this. We probably don't share quite the same opinions on this to a degree, but, I will never, ever tell somebody they should publish traditionally. I just won't. I don't believe in the business model. I think it's a dying, archaic way of doing things. I think, they've had their their era, their period of where, okay, it was cool to traditionally publish a book, and there were some benefits that came from that, mostly just the idea that you were known as an author for writing this book. Very few made a lot of money from writing books through the traditional process. But, what Justin's been able to build, not just, in money, like put that aside, because direct book sales, he's not getting rich off that. Even the amount of copies he sold, it's everything else that's come from it, which he wouldn't have if he published traditionally. And this database now that he has of people that have bought his book, he wouldn't have that if he published traditionally. His ability to almost, he's been able to restructure kind of his business, his curriculum, his content, and his offerings in such that, I'm going to say this, and some people might think, well, that doesn't sound great, but just hear me through to the end. By having a book at a lower price point, right, for a piece of content, that theoretically gives away a lot of, your core sort of, stuff, educational components, your frameworks and things like that. And then you also have these different courses and other offerings, and then these master classes that typically are on the higher end of the price points, right? We've seen master classes from people go for as high as $50, $60, $75, $80,000, for a 6-month, whatever. You can kind of cut the middle section of those content offerings out to a degree, right? So online courses, for example, I think, and Justin's referenced this, and I've heard other people talk about it, and it's just common sense, I think, that online courses are going to start becoming less and less of a thing because of AI and other stuff. But having this lower level, entry level price point product that can then push people down the funnel, so to speak, into your higher priced master classes, I think is really great. And, cutting out, having somebody take an online course of yours for $50, $100, $300, whatever they go for, just depends on who you are. But again, they can run the gamut from $50 to $500. They may or may not find what they need out of that. More than likely, they'll get enough, and then that's probably it. They might take another online course from you at some point or buy some other, but the likelihood, and I think today's world where they're going to take an online course of yours, spend a couple $100, and then go on to take a master class from you, that's, let's say $15,000, $20,000, that's shrinking or declining and probably going to disappear soon. But the likelihood that somebody would spend $20 on your book, find such value in that thing that they land a $15,000 sponsorship or a $30,000 sponsorship, the likelihood that they would then turn around and go, well, if I learned this much, if I landed this sponsorship from a $20 book from this guy, absolutely. I'm going to take half of that sponsorship money I just got, and I'm going to go drop it as a deposit on his next master class. Because if I can get 15, 20, 30,000 from his book, imagine what I could get if I took his high ticket master class.
Yes. And he actually did talk about that when I was interviewing him, and the idea, especially what you said about the, online courses are kind of going out in the age of AI. It's not the way that people consume educational content anymore. There are too many different other options available to them. But specifically, like I was saying, where he said he was kind of aware of the fact that the book was going to be cannibalizing some of his course content, but he was okay with that as a strategic pivot with the business. He's pivoting, and Creator Wizard is pivoting towards more one-on-one coaching and people that are looking for more long-term support and those direct relationships with, he does have a team too. It's not, I don't think it's just Justin anymore.
He does have a small team, yeah.
Which I included Joe Casabona, who was one of the people that helped me get started with this podcast. So
yeah,
if
shout
he's
out
listening,
to Joe.
Shout out to Joe. But he, Justin was saying that, if the book is an opportunity to get people to say, okay, I've learned a lot. I'm convinced now that sponsorships are worth my time and investment, but I still need a little more help. Like the book, it got me there and it convinced me, but I am navigating this really big deal, or I'm navigating something that I feel a little bit out of my depth in. now they are more willing to take that next step towards that larger buy-in of a one-on-one coaching opportunity, but it is much more of a lead gen opportunity for him in that case.
Yeah.
Which I think makes a lot of sense. Although I did really like, because I asked him if that was like the primary motivation behind publishing the book, was it lead gen? And he said ultimately it was honestly just about passing on the education and information that he has to the next generation of creators. And I thought that was a cool reason to want to do this. Added to the genuineness of what he was talking about. I don't know. I liked it. I wanted to shout that out.
I think the important thing here, though, is again, for this first Creator Spotlight, we really wanted to find somebody that had embodied a lot of the tactics and principles that we've been talking about for the last 70-something episodes. And when we sat down and thought about or looked through the different books that we've come across or authors we've worked with or things like that, he was a pretty clear standout there. And because he's still kind of really in the thick of his launch, honestly, his arc is going long and wide. It just made the most sense to bring him in. And so, again, everything from getting that manuscript done pretty quickly, getting it edited, turned it over to a hybrid publisher to take care of, really good cover design, layout, formatting, all those things. And then, developing the launch strategy of going staggered formats, selling direct first, capturing all that customer data, and then building steam off of that, and then rolling through some of the other things that we talk about with post-launch marketing. So the PR efforts, the interviews, the really cool little details and subtle things that he adds into when you actually buy the book from him. Or, again, it's just this, like you said, it's master class in like how you should create, publish, market, and sell a book. I don't think we could have picked a better person to start with. And I think that, again, for those who are listening, these things work. And so putting together a plan, a strategy that'll work for you, that you have time for, that incorporates these tactics, I think you will see some of these same results. And, go look at Justin's stuff. Go to creatorwizard.com, go to sponsormagnet.com, check out his website. Like, everything is just done really well. And a lot of attention has been paid to the details that a lot of people wouldn't think about. There's a lot of sincerity baked into everything there. I think that really helps. A lot of testimonial and UGC is there, which really drives trust, which is in short supply, but in high demand out there right now. So, yeah.
Well, I think we've done it.
Maybe. We'll see.
We'll see. I don't know. I think that if we haven't convinced you by now that it's worth your time and effort to publish a book, then maybe Justin will.
I would say that like there's something really special about the fact that I now introduce myself as an author of Sponsor Magnet. Like I never thought that like that would be the main thing that I say now, rather than creator of Creator Wizard or founder of Creator Wizard or YouTuber or whatever. Like I call myself author of Sponsor Magnet. That's like the main thing I say now in my bio and all that. So that's wild. I've been a creator since 2009. And so this is still a title that feels super new to me, but there's something different about when people hear that. And I just feel so proud to be able to do that. And so, yeah, for anyone else listening or watching this, I tell everyone to write a book, especially if you're an educator. Holy cow. It's such an accelerant.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, right? Like, you can listen to us two idiots up here talking as much as you want, and hopefully you find value in that. But we'd like to start doing more of these creator spotlights so that you can actually see people putting this stuff into practice. And maybe Lauren and I will start putting some of this stuff into practice too.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. All right. Well, leave us a review. Send us an email, podcast@lulu.com. Comment on Lulu Social, on YouTube, on Instagram, anywhere you want to come find us, and give us a shout. And we will be back next week with another new episode.
Later.
Bye. To learn more about this episode, check out the show notes on publishprosperpodcast.com. Publish and Prosper is brought to you by Lulu.com.
To hear more episodes like this one, please like and subscribe wherever you listen. Thanks for tuning in.